Since 2001, there have been more than 100,000 British soldiers deployed in order to work in Afghanistan. But along with America, British troops have been withdrawing. Now, the Taliban have made what's being described as lightning advances in recent weeks. I just want to show you the territory that they've seized. This is the territory you can see in the brown that the Taliban had on the 9th of July, not that long ago. The yellow was contested areas and the blue are the areas that the government held. Fast forward to the 15th of August, and look at the map. It's a sea of brown, a sea of Taliban, and it's probably, these areas of blue are probably all but disappeared already, and I'm sure some of these areas have shrunk. So that is the fastest, a really fast takeover. So joining us now is Tobias Ellwood, Chair of the Commons Defence Select Committee. Good morning, Mr. Ellwood, and thank you for joining us. The big question is, has Britain abandoned Afghanistan?
Yes, completely. And we should hang our head in shame as a civil war now unfolds after 2 decades of effort. You know, it's interesting you show that map there because we were making progress over the last 3 years. Go back a year ago, and most of that map would have been showing Afghan government, control. And the consequence of Donald Trump agreeing for prisoners to be released, agreeing for a timetable for Americans to depart before any new government had been agreed, has allowed the Taliban simply to wait. And once American troops started to depart, that's when they advanced. Don't believe for a second that this will be a conflict-free transition, because what happens is that ordinary Afghans look to see which way the wind is turning, and then they join that particular side. They just simply want to stay alive. There are many Pashtun tribes and Uzbeks, Tajiks, and so forth that have hated the Taliban, as they did during the Civil War. They will now retreat, they will regroup, they will be rearmed by proxy nations, and that's when a terrible civil war will unfold. This is a humiliating strategic defeat for the West.
But as you said, do you think that once America had said, let's talk to the Taliban, once that had been put in action, there's nothing that Britain could do?
Well, I disagree with that. That's what exactly happened. It's so disheartening how the West simply crumbled because the United States politically made a judgment to say, let's bring our troops home. You know, the United States have more American troops based in the UK than they did in Afghanistan.
No.
You know, they're there for reasons, to help stability, to do training, to work together as an alliance. We were doing a decent job. We were giving the Afghan forces the upper hand against the Taliban to hold them to account. Our departure has meant they couldn't do that. Progress couldn't be made. And we now see the chaos, utter chaos as that is unfolding. And to be really clear, this isn't just gifting control to the very adversary that we entered Afghanistan to defeat in the first place. It's actually now allowing terrorist organizations once again to return to Afghanistan. And my real worry is that they will. Do another attack on the scale of 9/11.
Really?
To make the point of how futile our last 2 decades have been.
Shay, what did you want to say?
I just wanted to ask the question, Tobias. What would you say to those people who say, well, the West could not stay in Afghanistan forever, 20 years is enough, and if at this point locals on the ground haven't got that stability, then they probably never will?
Well, let's answer the last bit first of all. You're absolutely right. Some fundamental errors were made. We tried to impose a Western-style government on Afghanistan. It wasn't ready for it. Trying to run things in Kabul. Kabul saying who could be a teacher in Helmand province, in Lashkar, that isn't the way that you do business. And it goes against, the whole of the history of Afghanistan. But after the Second World War, did we abandon Germany? Did we just depart? No, we stayed the course for decades. And had we not done so, the Iron Curtain probably would have rubbed up against France. We should be nurturing this country. We should be working with them and allowing it to grow and flourish. And the irony here is that Donald Trump and Biden are saying, oh, we mustn't, we must pull away from Afghanistan. We've got to focus on China and Russia and Iran. Well, guess where Afghanistan sits? Right between three of those adversaries. Yeah. What a great bit of global real estate to keep close to us.
Mike, what do you...
Mr. Ellwood, I've got to ask you, you must expand on the issue of how we could have done more than just leave. Once the Americans came out, Mr. Ellwood, what on earth were UK forces going to do against the might of the forces now gathered, all the tribes together in Kabul? We couldn't possibly have stopped all that. So, really, once America had gone, we had no choice. You said we abandoned them, but what else could we do?
Well, let's, again, divide that up. It isn't all the tribes. It's those who are armed. The actual adversaries, as I just explained, have actually fled because they weren't ready for a fight. They're going to rearm now and they're going to come back. But the bigger point is, absolutely, you're right. We can't do this alone. Exactly. But we had a force of between 5,000 to 10,000, providing the air superiority, the intelligence gathering as well, giving the Afghan forces the edge, allowing them to grow in capability. But go back to another schoolboy era. We didn't even start training an Afghan force until 2005. 4 years were wasted. And during that time, the Taliban had moved across the Pakistani border and started to retrain themselves, which begs another question as to why Pakistan didn't do more.